The site of the Wounded Knee Memorial is on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in southwestern South Dakota. I'm Jeff. Thank you for watching Backroads Tourist today. Pine Ridge is one of the poorest areas in America, and some sources estimate the unemployment rate is 90%. Alcoholism is widespread on the reservation, and the life expectancy for residents is significantly lower than for the rest of the United States. Some of the comments I read online talked about how some people felt nervous at Wounded Knee because residents were approaching them and either offering to sell things or just plainly asking for money. So after reading this, I was a little apprehensive about visiting, but I did, and my experience wasn't bad at all. Just after I parked my car, I was approached by a young woman who told me she had some items to sell at her table, and she politely asked me to come over and take a look. When I did, she showed me what she had to offer, and I did buy a necklace from her. Then I went over to another table where an older woman was selling some beadwork that she had made. I bought a hat band that she had done, and then we chatted for about 10 minutes about Wounded Knee and what happened there. And she showed me a map that pinpointed where everything occurred, and this really put things into perspective for me, and the area sort of came to life for me at that point. I'm not discounting other people's experiences, but as for me, I was treated with respect and courtesy, and I did likewise. The Wounded Knee Massacre occurred on December 29, 1890. There are a lot of nuances and events that influence the tragedy, and I encourage you to research this for yourself because I'm just going to give you the bare bones explanation of the incident, but there's certainly a lot more to delve into. The defeat of General Custer at Little Bighorn, the death of Sitting Bull, the ghost dance, and other factors all contributed to what happened that day. The 7th Cavalry were escorting a group of Lakota Indians who had left the reservation. They stopped at Wounded Knee to set up camp, and tensions were running high on both sides. The Lakota were ordered to give up their firearms, and one version of the story says that a deaf tribe member named Black Coyote didn't understand the orders and struggled with soldiers who were trying to take his rifle. In the struggle, the gun went off. After hearing a gunshot, the soldiers started opening fire on the defenseless Lakota. 4 Hotchkiss guns that were positioned on a hill were also used in the fight. The Lakota who ran from the fight were tracked down and shot, sometimes miles away. In the end, it's estimated that between 150 and 300 Lakota were killed. 2/3 of those were women and children. 25 soldiers were also killed, and most of them by friendly fire. When I was doing my research on this video, I found that different sources had different totals when it came to the number of people who lost their lives that day, so if you decide to look into the story for yourself, you may find different numbers. As you look from the hillside, you see where the massacre took place. A highway runs through the area where the teepees stood that day and where so many lost their lives. Three days after the incident, hired men returned to Wounded Knee to bury the dead. The frozen bodies were all put in this mass grave on the hill where the Hotchkiss guns were positioned. A cemetery grew around the mass grave, and it's still being used today. The grave markers range from regular headstones to simple wooden crosses. Some areas of the cemetery are overgrown with weeds, and the graves are neglected and uncared for. But on the fence surrounding the mass grave, you'll find braids and other ornaments that have been left out of respect. There is a monument at the grave erected by descendants of those who died at Wounded Knee. Along with listing many of the names of those who died that day, it also reads, quote, "This monument is erected by surviving relatives and other Ogallala and Cheyenne River Sioux Indians in memory of the Chief Bigfoot Massacre, December 29, 1890. Colonel Forsyth in command of U.S. troops. Bigfoot was a great chief of the Sioux Indians. He often said, 'I will stand in peace until my last day comes.' He did many good and brave deeds for the white man and the red man. Many innocent women and children who knew no wrong died here." End quote. Flying over the memorial is a simple white flag. It's the symbol of peace. Wikipedia says that Wounded Knee was the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. 19 soldiers were awarded medals of honor for their actions at Wounded Knee. In 2001, the National Congress of American Indians passed 2 resolutions condemning the military awards and calling on the federal government to rescind them. To date, the Medals of Honor have not been rescinded, but in 1990, both houses of Congress passed a resolution on the 100th anniversary of Wounded Knee, expressing deep regret for the massacre. Wounded Knee was declared a U.S. National Historic Landmark in 1965 and was put on the U.S. National Register of Historic Places in 1966. But you're not going to find any elaborate plaques or souvenir shops, not even a welcome center. Just a few Pine Ridge residents in the parking lot at the foot of the hill who have set up some tables with jewelry, trinkets, and handmade items to sell. There is a large sign that gives you a history of Wounded Knee, and after you read the front of the sign, you move around to the back side where the story continues. You can walk to the cemetery from the parking lot, or you can drive up the rough road and park in a small dirt parking lot. December 29th, 1890 was a dark day in the history of this country. A day that is uncomfortable to remember, but a day that shouldn't be forgotten. I'm glad I made the decision to visit and pay my respects. Thank you for watching today. I'm Jeff, and I'll see you on the back roads.